Hey, it's PDJ and
Oh no.
Steve. Welcome back to the Pete and Steve podcast. This is episode 150, your local take on local news. We're glad you're here. So we've got an exciting episode this time again. As usual, Steve is finally back from Las Vegas.
Woohoo!
I trust you had a good time there.
Oh my gosh, it was so good, dude. It was so much fun. Yeah, some good success, but I just love it. 10 straight days of playing poker as much as possible.
Was it hot down there? What was the weather like?
Well, I don't know if you consider 105, 106 hot. If you consider that hot, then yeah, it was hot.
Oh, okay.
And I don't care if it's a dry heat. On my body, it becomes a wet heat. I mean, like this dry heat becomes a wet heat when it's soaking through my clothes.
Oh, that's funny.
Super fun, though, yeah.
Well, we've got a couple of stories. We're going to be talking about the T21 ordinance as it applies to the city of Cambridge. And we're going to talk about kind of a surprise regarding the splash pad that was going to get funding from the state, from the sales tax increase. And then I found an old historical book from about Cambridge, and there's a kind of a letter to the editor in there from 1907. I'm going to read. I thought it was kind of interesting. But first, we've got an exciting guest here who's going to talk to us. Steve, I'll just turn it right over to you.
Yeah, it's one of the most exciting guests we've ever had on the Pete and Steve show. No, but seriously, he's a friend of the show. But Stacey Nelson is the pole vaulting coach at Cambridge. He actually teaches in St. Francis, but coaches pole vault in Cambridge. And this program, as part of the overall Cambridge Isani track program, has just been knockout, standout. He's well regarded in the state as one of the top coaches. I know he's a humble guy, but just some great success over the past few years. And really this year kind of really knocked it out of the park at the state competition. So we thought, well, let's have Stacey on. Let's have him talk a little bit about the success of the program, the kids this year that were just crushing it. And then maybe we can even ask him questions about what's it like to fly through the air on a pole or something too. But with that, let's welcome in Stacey Nelson. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's fun to be back on.
So let's
I'm not drinking some strange juices this morning.
Yes, I mean, last time you were on, you were drinking vinegar with us in the old format of the Pete and Steve show.
Yeah. Oh, that was bad. That apple cider vinegar. Well, I was on that kick for a while, and we thought, hey, let's drink some on the show. Stacey's never had it before. Should be fine.
I'd never had it either. It was, and we just did it. Like, we just did it. And yeah. It was too much, too soon. And I think, Stacey, you actually ended up with blisters in your throat or something, right?
Yeah, for about a week. Yeah. Pete was not a high on my favorites list that week. That's for sure.
I'm really sorry. I had no idea.
So we had to double his appearance fee to get him back on here, but we did get him back on. So Stacey, let's start. Maybe we start with the end first. What happened at the state meet? I know there's the guys meet, there's the gals meet. Let's just kind of talk about this latest round of the state meet and what happened. What were the results?
Well, I could start with the end, kind of topped it off at the top. Our top girl vaulter, who had been vaulting well all year long, had the second best vault in the state all year long. She ended up at the top of the podium. So wow. It was a
state champion.
State champ, yep. It was a strange turn of events. The top gal was in the state. Was a gal from Mounds View, and she was a two-time state champ. And in the pole vault, there's just so many variables at the section meet, which you have to qualify for the state meet at the sections. She ended up going no heights. She, something was wrong the first jump, and then the second jump, her step was off and tried to stop and literally burned her hand on the pole. And so now she's got 3 minutes to make the next jump and couldn't get it. And so the two-time state champ didn't qualify for the state tournament, which opens the door for all the rest of the girls. And Shar Murky, our pole vaulter, we had the number 2 vault going in, and she just was on her game, and she flew right through the heights, didn't miss a height until she was the only one remaining. And then even went an additional height beyond that. So it was pretty exciting to watch it. It was one of the easiest on the coach, Usually you have to really work together and figure out how to get over the next height, but she just kind of went height after height after height, and right up to the top, kind of exclamation point that said, you know what, the door's open. I'm going to be the first one to walk through this. So it was pretty exciting.
Well, I know we talked about that going in a little bit too. So the gal from Mounds View was like, it was a clear number one. Wasn't she like clearing like 2 feet more than everybody else? Like some like almost like Olympic level sort of jumper, right?
Yeah, she's 39 or 14 feet was her, right in that area where she'd been jumping. And that's more than most guys. I think only 5 guys in the state went that high, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And so she's potential Olympian, I think.
Right.
And so
Can I ask a question, Stacey? So what's her secret? Is she just really strong, or is it the technique that's down, or what makes her so good?
Yeah, if you saw her, you'd know. She's taller than I am. I think she's 6'1". You just walk by, you see there's an athlete, and so she's strong, she's fast, she's tall, and she's got great coaching, and she's got fabulous technique. So yeah, she's got the whole package, and it's kind of been fun because I was roommates with her dad in college, so we've been following them for their whole career, and it's been super fun. It's just super devastating when I heard the news, obviously, that she missed qualifying. But
yeah, so that's part of the story, right? I mean, it's devastating. As just humans, we have grief for her. I mean, she's a 2-time state champion, so it's not like she's been there before. But you grieve for that. But I know talking to you, it's like, okay, well, we can't control that. She didn't make her height. That's really sad. We feel bad for her. But somebody has to win the state championship. Right. Why not Shar Morkey that you're talking about? Yep. And Shar's, a competitor as well. She's a gymnast, very successful gymnast. So what does that look like for you as you're coaching her? Does anything change in that, as you see the Mounds View gal open up the door? Or was it like, well, with pole vault, you're just going to do the best you can anyway. You can't control what other people do, so just do your best. Or does something change in the mentality of, now here's an opportunity that we never thought we'd have to become a state champion? Like what goes into the mental side of coaching beyond the physical side of all the stuff that you do?
That's a great question, because that came up in a big way when we heard the news. Do we tell her right away, or do we wait, or that type of a thing? And the head coach was the first one to find out the news, and in his mind, that's Coach Mike Galligan. He was like, we need to tell her right away, have her time to kind of deal with this, because now all of a sudden you're the lead dog and the pressure is on. And she felt it. I felt it. It was even in this section meet, because they had their section meet before we did. So we found out a day ahead of time before we went into the section meet. And boy, she was tight. Shar was in our section going, well, if it could happen to her,
right,
who's jumping 14 feet, it could certainly happen to me. And so she was just super duper tight. But yeah, so we tried to just talk it through a little bit. We've talked since last year about the potential. I mean, with the pole vault, there's so many chances for injury, or, you just never know why somebody can't make it or qualify. So death in the family or anything. And we just said, hey, let's be ready. If the door opens, let's be ready to step through it. So we kind of went back to that mentality, said, wow, the door really did open. We didn't ever think it would really happen, but it did. And we just talked it through and said, okay, let's set goals. And we broke it down. Our number one goal at sections then is to make the qualifying height. Because if you make that height at sections, it doesn't matter what place you get to move on to the state tournament. And that height, I think, was 11 feet 1 inch. And Shar's top was 12.6, so it should be an easy in. But
right. But you've already seen this.
It should have been for somebody going 14 feet too.
Right.
So we said that's our number one goal. That's our ultimate focus is, I guess, when we're warming up, our number one goal is our starting height, and we started at 10 feet 6 inches. That's what we've done all year long, and we decided not to change that, and then just went up from there. So number one goal was to get open our height. Number two goal was to make 11 feet. Once we're in, then we can set other goals as far as winning the meet and taking first place and that kind of stuff. So we really broke it down to that. And then once you make the state meet, then again, it was regroup and say, it's one height at a time. Let's hone in. You don't win the state meet on your first jump. You make it on your last one.
Right. Good stuff. Well, let's shift now to the guys' side. Because so Shar Markey, state champion. Congratulations to you, Shar. The whole program. It's certainly an exciting thing, and I know you're a humble guy, but man, it's got to feel good. I know it's a ton of work that you put into this thing, and the respect that you're gaining year after year over your peers. Huge stuff. So congratulations. But let's talk now about the guys, where there's also, I think you had 3 out of the top 10 at state or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah, that was pretty epic. Wow. It was a pretty neat deal. Again, the section, which had 16 teams, I think, in it, you can only send 2. The section sends 2, and out of the 16 teams, each team submits three vaulters to vault in the section meets. So out of 45 plus vaulters, the top 2 go on to state, or if you make the qualifying height, which was for boys, 13 feet 9 inches. If you make that, then you can qualify no matter how many of you go.
Right.
So that was kind of our goal, because I had 3 guys that all had done 13 feet 6 inches. And so they were right on the cusp of making this height. So in order for them all to go, they all had to get their best vault of their career on that day.
Crazy.
Which you hope for, the possibilities there, but you don't really believe it can happen until it did. And these guys stepped up, and they were the only 3 left in the competition. And when the first guy made it, you could kind of feel the emotions start to well, going, oh my gosh, that's my buddy. He just got it. And they're all at the same height, competing every day together. And so the second guy makes it on the next jump. And now they're hoping for this third guy he was the senior. Everybody's just cheering for him to pull it down. And on his third vault, I believe it was the energy in the air that really gave him that extra whatever he needed to get over. So he ended up making it there, and then he went on to make the next height and actually won the meet with that. So we went 1, 2, 3 in sections, which is it's just an incredible feeling to see these guys peak and reach their potential when the pressure was on.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. First, second, third in sections. And you can only send 2 people unless you make heights. You have 3 people make the height. So you go to the state meet, roughly how many people are at the state meet, and then just talk a little bit about, either, kind of the expectations versus the actual results.
Well, we had 8 sections in the state, and each section sends 2, plus we had 1 extra.
Okay.
So there's 17 of the top vaulters down in the state down at the meet. And again, there's some of those variations. Mounds View had another stroke of bad luck there. They had a kid that regularly goes over 14 feet blow his knee out 2 weeks before the section meet. It's a high variable sport.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them are, I guess. But there's just so much technical that can go wrong with pole vault. So you at least have most of the top vaulters in the state there. The returning state champ was there, and some really good vaulters. So you go down there. If you just make the qualifying height, they determine the qualifying height by it's the 5th place at the state tournament over the last 5 years. It's the average height.
Okay.
And so basically, they're saying if you get that height, you're potential in the mix for getting on the podium,
which is the top 9.
Which is top 9.
Okay.
And so our guys went down there, and we had 2 kids again get a personal best. Our senior Joe Stoffer, he ended up going 14 feet 6 inches. And keep in mind, his best the week before that was 13.6.
Wow,
so
whole foot.
He went up by a full foot at the end of his career, right at when it counted. So it's pretty.
That's 12 inches. That's 12 inches, Pete.
Well, I'm just, it sounds like he was taking steroids or something there. He just
Yeah, it does. With the pole vault, there's things that happen though that technically, if you find the right technique in the right time, you do tend to make big jumps. So he found a couple of extra. He found an extra gear on the runway, meaning running a little bit faster, And then he had some of the best technique of anybody at the state tournament. He really gets upside down well and swings on the pole well. And he's just fun to watch because he truly vaults like you see in the Olympics, just not quite as high. He's not quite as fast, and so doesn't go as on big as poles as the Olympians. But he does get upside down, and he does do the rest of the technique very, very well. And it just started clicking for him.
Well, you must be doing something different than when I was in track and field back in the day, because from what I could tell, the pole vaulters just spent the whole time laying around on the pole vault mats while we were running around the track. So things have changed since I was in school.
Yeah, that has changed. They know if they still do, but if they see me coming over the hill, they jump pretty quick, because that is one of Coach Nelson's pet peeves is that the pole vault mats do not need to be held down. they don't blow away, so we don't need to hold them down. They know that for sure.
Well, we have to wrap it up pretty quick, but I want to make sure that so who were the three guys that qualified at the state meet? So you mentioned Joe Stauffer.
Yep, he's the senior, and he went 14-6, and he's the one that took fourth place. And then Ethan Hintermeister also PR'd, what's called a personal record, at the state meet, and he went 14 feet. So he went an extra 3 inches beyond his best the week before, and he ended up in 7th place. And then Amadeus McElrath, he was my 4th vaulter for most of the year. Then we had some mishaps, and he had a door open to step into that 3rd position, and walked in, and he did 13-6 and ended up, and I believe it was 10th place down there. So 10th or 11th, something like that.
It's unbelievable.
Congratulations to those guys. They didn't just, get in. They went down there, they performed well, and 2 of them will be around next year to see what they can do. So pretty exciting to see these guys peak at the right time.
It's so cool. I mean, obviously, it takes their effort, it takes their commitment, it takes their energy. It takes a great coach to kind of help them get there wherever they're falling short, or to help them put it all together. Because, I mean, as we've talked, I mean, it's sort of from a real high level, it kind of looks like a simple sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Not that I can ever do it, but it's like, okay, you run down, you put the pole in, you jump over. And then as we're talking about this thing, well, you have to balance the speed with I didn't realize that there's different sorts of poles. So depending on how fast you are and how heavy you are and how you propel yourself, use different poles of different heights, of different densities or something, I don't know. And then, it's a really complex thing. And when you actually think about, okay, you're running and you have to stick the pole at the right time. If you do it too early, you lose speed. All of these things, it's pretty complicated. And so, kudos to you guys, but it's sort of a really cool thing to watch. Like, it seems really risky, but it seems like super fun to be flying through the air. Yeah,
to try to find pole vaulters, I usually do a few drills with them when they're brand new, and then I've got a little deal where I get them in the air for the first time, and I always watch their eyes when they come down on the mat after the first time, and I can almost always tell if they're hooked for life or if they're probably going to move on to another event. Yeah. Yep. Like Ethan, last year, his eyes were about this big, and I was like, uh-oh. I didn't know if he got scared, and he goes, I got to do that again. And I was like, okay,
here we go.
Him. That type of thing.
So as you're thinking, we have all kinds of people in the community listening to this deal. I hear some background noise. Is that just on my side? Weird. Okay. Anyway, doesn't matter. Sorry, my ADD. But if we got people in the community that are listening in on this thing, and they might think, hey, I've got a kid or a grandkid or a nephew or a niece or somebody that this might be a good thing for. They're trying to find their niche. They're not really they don't really love running. They're more of like a risk-taking person, or like what characteristics would you say, would make up a good pole vaulter or somebody that would really enjoy this as you're continuing to try to build this program and create more and more section and state champions?
Personally, I just look for a good athlete, number one. I mean, I feel like I can help people that are good athletes, but some of those things I joke with the pole vaulters. It's the type of kid that I say, hey, go run through that wall, and the kid won't question it. He'll just say, well, okay, that type of a thing. I've also find people that have had a lot of coaching already about their body, like gymnasts and wrestlers, where they're told, here, like a wrestler, this move isn't working. You got to move your arm out to that angle because it'll go better. Or gymnast, you got to tuck, in a little tighter, or, come out a little earlier. They're used to thinking outside of their body and then picturing it and being able to make adjustments. Those are the kids I find pick it up pretty naturally. Even if you haven't done any of that, you can pick it up. The drills we do are designed to help you with that. But those are the ones I found that they are really body aware and can really pick it up fast.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm hearing kind of used to having body control thing, putting themselves in situations where they have to tweak how they do things. 'Cause that's what it seems like. Okay, you have to be able to, as you're planting the pole and you realize this isn't quite right, adjust your body, or as you're up in the air, you have to be able to adjust your body in a certain way or contort it in a different way. Or it seems fascinating.
If I say tell the kid you're not planting high, you have to kind of understand what that means, and kids that have been told, like a gymnast has been told, well, you're not coming off the springboard high enough. They just kind of get that because they've been coached since age 3, some of those gymnasts, about those types of things. So it's, those ones are like I say, they pick it up faster, but don't hold back on a kid. Anybody can pick it up. The drills are designed to help the kids do it too. So.
Right. Here's a couple things. I just did a quick Google search, and so for pole vaulters, it says the skills should include a high degree of coordination, timing, speed, and gymnastic ability. So kind of just exactly what you said, Stacey.
Yeah, I think I wrote that article.
It seems like you know what you're talking about.
The other thing that's sort of interesting here is that pole vault was voted the 16th most difficult sports that there is out of 60.
Is it right after ping pong?
Oh, I should. I don't want to click on the whole article, but I'm just trying to. And that was an ESPN ranking. So they ranked the 60 hardest sports, and pole vaulting was 16 out of those 60 hardest. So
well, fun. That's
cool. Fact. Well, I would say too. For those of you listening out there too, Stacey is a very well-regarded coach, a man of high integrity. The kids just love him. He has relationships with some of these kids after high school. So, if your kid or your young person is looking for a way to plug in, give something a shot. If they're an athlete, if they love to run, love to fly, if all that sounds kind of intriguing, I'd say, give pole vaulting a shot. Go for a tryout and see what happens there. Because it's, the program is just being built year after year after year. And I know you've had an opportunity to connect and be in a relationship with some of the other great coaches across the state and even at the university level. Yep. So you're not going to find a better high school coach out there if you want your kid to succeed in this way, but also somebody who's who's also going to care about the kids, And so I think it's a cool program, and it's one of these little things that you really don't know about until you see some of this stuff kind of come to light. Like, wow, this is a pretty cool thing right inside of Cambridge that we have to offer as a community. So kudos to you, man, and to the kids, and fantastic job building a great program. Even though you teach at St. Francis, we'll still allow it. You're one of us now.
No, but you saying that is, well, you've known me long enough to know probably my favorite part of it is the attachment I get to those kids. Because, every meet we go through that process of, okay, you got about 10 seconds after they jump to figure out what they did next, and you pull together, you and the vaulters saying, here's what I saw, here's what you saw, and build this trust together that I tell them, oh, you need a bigger pole. They're going, oh, that's a scary pole, coach. And that, you do that year after year after year for 4 years, you build a pretty tight relationship. And I think that's my favorite part of the whole deal, just the closeness I felt with these kids. And that's why you feel so good for them and you hurt for them when things don't go well. So, yeah, if you want your kid to be part of that type of a dynamic, it's pretty neat deal.
Awesome. Well, Pete, do you have anything else? Otherwise, we can let Stace go.
No, I don't think so. That's really interesting. Thanks for coming on, Stacey. Thanks
for what you guys are doing. This is pretty cool that you're, picking out these top stories each week and just kind of highlighting them and then just putting it out on the air, because not everybody has time to read the paper, but a lot of people will put the earbuds in and listen to you too. So it's pretty cool. Appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, thanks for giving us a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. Keep the kids coming. We'll keep them going.
All right, sounds good, Stacey.
We'll
All right,
see
you can sign off there. We're going to keep on cruising. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. Bye.
All right. Well, what do you think, Pete? That was pretty awesome, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's incredible. I can't believe it. Well, and I've always sort of marveled at that pole vaulting. I mean, it just seems like there's so much technique involved that, I mean, you have to be a pretty incredible athlete to be able to do that, it seems like.
yeah, I wonder if, obviously I don't have the speed and the dexterity to pull it off now, but I always wondered what it would have been like to actually give that a shot. Like, just to see what would it be like to trust yourself enough. I mean, you're running down the thing and you plant the pole. First of all, I'd miss the hole, but assuming I could hit the hole, to be able to trust yourself enough to let yourself go upside down as the pole is bending, to not just bail out somehow, but to trust yourself and then be thrown up over the pole. I think it'd just be a cool feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah,
For
Stacey does a phenomenal job. But we should probably move on to the other stories we wanted to highlight. That got a little longer than we wanted, but it was good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's talk about what are you going to start with the T21 ordinance?
Yeah, let's talk about the T21 ordinance. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so y'all can see what I'm talking about. So this is kind of an interesting thing. It's continuing. Not that we want to talk about the same things week after week after week, but the Cambridge City Council did decide to not raise the tobacco age to 21. I know it had been kind of tabled and there had been some back and forth. And this is kind of in the context of the overall county did say we're raising the age to 21. The city said we're not raising the age to 21. And so it's still this interesting dynamic, right, where the county can override the city. But for now, the city is saying, you do not have to be 21 to buy tobacco. And there's what I thought was interesting, not just the result, but just some of the conversation about it on either side. It was a 3-2 vote around this deal, and I don't know. I'm just kind of torn on how to feel about this thing because some of the comments are, well, I guess we shouldn't be dictating what adults can do, because if we do that, then should we also start to not allow them to buy breakfast cereal and fast food, which to me feels like a little hyperbole, right? If because I guess I don't put those in the same category. Because you can look at it the other way and say, well, if we do that, then why are we not allowing them to buy methamphetamines or whatever too? You know what I mean? I think that's the job of the city council or whatever, is to figure out what is important, what's not important. And I know they're also kind of balancing this. How do we do what's in the best interest of individual residents, but also for the city collectively? And so you've got this issue of, part of what's best for the city collectively is to get as much revenue as possible. So by selling it to younger people, you get more revenue, but you also have potentially more health issues. But then there's the whole dynamic of, well, they can get it anyway from their friends because the polls show that they mostly get it from their friends anyway. And so I don't know. I don't really know where to fall on this thing. I know where I generally believe, but I think there are multiple issues going on here.
Well, and it's kind of like a two-dimensional sliding scale, because as I've been thinking about this over the past week, I was thinking about what age would I pick if I was in charge, and I think that it should be illegal for 5-year-olds to buy tobacco, but I think it should be legal for 30-year-olds to buy tobacco. But where that cutoff is, I don't know. Should it be 16 or should it be 18? That seems kind of weird because you can go and fight a war, but you can't, buy cigarettes when you get there or something. And, and then so it's kind of like this sliding scale of where do you actually draw the line? And then as far as preventing people from doing unhealthy things, like you said, you can go from, sugary breakfast cereal or large sugary drinks, which they banned in New York, up to, heroin. And I don't think that sugary drinks should be banned, but I do think heroin should be, banned. And then there's this whole spectrum in between there. And I don't know where the cutoff should be. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I don't know. And I think, you also have to recognize that, over time we learn new things. We didn't always think cigarettes were that bad for us. And then we did. And so there should be some changes that come alongside of that. I think one of the issues was that, why is tobacco legal anywhere when it causes this much health damage? Well, because it used to be, and it's hard to take something away. It's like what they tried to do with prohibition.
Right.
Okay, alcohol, whatever. Then we find out it's really bad. And then we decide we're not going to allow sales of alcohol, but then there's just too much money and it's all going to be black market anyway. So let's make it legal again to recapitalize on those things. And I feel like smoking is kind of the same way. Like if you were to just look at this, drop us in, and there's no history at all, and you say, hey, there's these sticks of tobacco that you can buy that people would really enjoy, but they cause just incredible damage and they increase the cost of healthcare, exponentially. What should we do? Well, let's not. I would say most people, or a lot of people would say, well, let's not. Even the people that would say, I don't really like a high government involvement, might say that doesn't seem like a good thing for our society. Well, let's not make that legal.
It's kind of interesting that you bring that up because Bob Newhart has a little sketch that he does. Bob Newhart was hilarious, but also kind of the master of the one-sided telephone conversation.
Okay.
And so he has this, he's talking on the phone to somebody it's like a long time ago, and they've just discovered smoking. I think they learned it from the Indians or something. And so they're calling back to Bob Newhart to tell him about this brand new fantastic thing, smoking. And he's on the other end of the line saying, okay, you do what now? You put it in your mouth and light a fire?
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I'll try to find that and put it on our Facebook group.
Yeah, do that. That sounds fascinating. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, if it was never legal, if it just came in today, we'd be like, well, I think most of us would be like, no, that doesn't seem like a good thing. But because it has been legal, because there has a big industry around it, there's a lot of, cash generated, a lot of jobs that are created. There's, it's a big industry. I think it makes it that much tougher to say, oh, we should reduce that. I think, the whole, there's some comments in here that I feel like are kind of contradictory, or at least I'm trying to understand. I need more information. Like somebody was saying, well, it's only, if we don't sell it to 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, it's only going to negatively impact like 50 youth in Cambridge. But yet there's another comment that says, the 11th graders, the survey indicates that about 50% of 11th graders use tobacco. So those two numbers, I don't know what the real number is, because obviously there's 300 kids in every grade that graduate. So that's, if there's 3 grades that are affected, that's 900 kids. And then 50% of that is 450. So I don't know, what the right number is. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's, there's partially the reality of the economics. There's also the slippery slope. What does that lead to if we do that? Either way, one way or the other. There's what kind of message do we send when we know that, every 3 years, I think we do this Isani County health assessment. And every year tobacco use among youth is one of the top 3 issues. So what kind of message are we sending by, taking that away, and how do we balance that with our rights as Americans to smoke or whatever? So it's complicated. I'm one of these people that says, you have to look at it through all these different lenses and ultimately make a decision. Yeah. But I'm personally disappointed just because I'd like to see less and less tobacco use in our society in general. And I think anything we can do to move toward that direction is a good thing. But I do recognize that it's not as simple as what I want to happen.
Right. Like, and the fact that you don't smoke, I assume, plays a big role in that, probably that opinion. Like I would say the people who do smoke. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if you're a 19-year-old who smokes, right, you have pretty strong feelings about it.
Right, and they commented in the article, well, they can still just go to Mora or whatever other cities have a lower age, so we're losing revenue that way. But and you're right. What lens are you looking through? If I was a smoker, I don't know, but it's easier for me as a non-smoker to say that. But I also wonder if I was a smoker, if I'd be like, yeah, I wish I wasn't a smoker. And part of the reason I smoked is because it was too easy to get cigarettes. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but that could be part of the perspective as well.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that in sort of a judgmental way at all. It's sort of wrestling with the issue of balancing individual rights with what's in the best interest of the city.
Yeah, and that's always the battle, isn't it? It's individual freedom versus security or safety. They're
right.
And you see it with like the online security. You see it with, national border security. You see it. It's like
seatbelt laws.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Why do we all wear seatbelts? We didn't used to 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we do. It seems like it's my right to. It seems like it would be my right to drive without a strap around me. It seems like it's my right, but it's not. I'm legally required to do it. And now, one of the other things I know coming into effect in August is you can't have a phone in your hand while you're driving. It's another thing where you say, well, hey, what right do they have to say what, that I can hold my phone while I'm listening to music, or if I'm on the talk, now that you're requiring me, if I need to make calls while I'm in the phone, you're requiring me to have Bluetooth. What right do you have to do that? Well, it's in the greatest public interest, so it's that constant sort of tension between the two. And it sort of drives wedges between people and political parties and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about the other one? I know we're cranking on time here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other one.
Yeah. So this one, let me again share here. This one I'm a little bit more. I'm going to say disturbed, but it might be a lack of information on my end. So we've been talking a bit about the funding, the additional sales tax to fund the library, and the library was just like 8 out of the 22 million. A good chunk of that money was going into parks and park development. And then, as we kind of followed the story each week, we found out that they had to define one specific park or one specific project to give that money to. And so apparently there's all these different potential projects like the splash pad and all of these other things that were available to be chosen from. And the council chose to give the money to the Sandquist Park to do kind of a major overhaul there, add fields and all that stuff. And that sounds like a great, phenomenal project. But in the process of doing that, they said, well, because now with things like the splash pad, those are cheaper. They can be done with general revenues from the city, and they can probably happen sooner because the funds will be available sooner. So that was one of the rationales for taking like the splash pad out of the major project. And I'm not just, I'm not like a big, we have to have a splash pad. But that was sort of the rationale, at least, as it was reported, even though it sounds pretty fun.
I think, none of us really want to see you splashing around in the splash pad anyway.
I would have loved one when I was in Vegas when it was 106 degrees. But anyway, so that was sort of the rationale behind it. And now the article has come out here. It says Cambridge splash pad may run dry. A very clever title there by Bill and the crew there. But the part about it that's interesting to me is that now it says, oh, hold on, the cost of this thing might be significantly higher than we thought because it may require a bathroom facility there. So that this bathroom, restroom, shower, changing area thing could cost $400,000, increasing the overall price tag to $750,000 to $860,000. And so now it's like, oh, whoa, that's a big price tag. We don't have the funds like through the municipal liquor store or anything to cover that. So this may not happen. It may be delayed or it may not happen at all because the price tag is so big. And there's still discussion around that. And they're not even sure if that restroom, shower, changing area is required. And so, obviously that's a change of perspective. And sorry, this is a very long intro to my point. My point being, it's curious to me that they didn't have that information when they decided, which projects to go to. So, and again, I don't have all the information. I'm just going off what the articles are, but it seems like they said, okay, let's have a meeting to talk about where the money should go. Oh, hey, the splash pad and some of these things, they're not going to cost that much. Let's not worry about those. Let's give the money there. And then later, after that decision was made, we say, hey, how much is the splash pad going to cost? And, we may or may not be required to have this. It just feels like there wasn't all of the information on hand that would have been really good to have when you're deciding which projects to go with.
Right. Yeah. Boy, that's tough.
And so, yeah, I'm sorry putting Pete in a spot, but like, so I don't know. I don't have all the information, but it just feels like
I do have a comment. I mean, it's sort of like the Donald Rumsfeld quote about you don't know. There's no knowns, there's unknown knowns, and then there's unknown unknowns. So I mean, it sounds like it was a situation where they didn't know what they didn't know. There was just kind of some assumptions about, splash pad, that can't be cost too much, and then it turns out that there's these additional requirements and different things, and I guess if ideally somebody said, well, would have said, I'm sure that a splash pad isn't that much, but let's just price it out to be sure, so we do have all the information.
Right. Yeah, it just seems odd to me. It seems like, and maybe they were under the gun that they had to make decisions quick. But I know this funding bill has been in multiple years in the making, and so as you're thinking about that,
right,
you think that at some point you'd have that information. So I don't know what's changed. Because they have this one done in Princeton that they kind of have as a way that's where they got kind of their initial numbers from as far as the sizing goes. So yeah, so there's a little. I was just disappointed, and I can't say if it was a specific group of people that missed the ball, but like as a strategist, as a somebody who's been involved in some of these big decisions like that, it's hard for me to look at that and say, okay, let's make a decision where we should spend the money. But we haven't actually done due diligence to know what stuff costs. We're just kind of guessing. And again, maybe they had actual good quotes that failed to recognize that. It just didn't come through in the tenor of the article. It just feels like, okay, let's do Sandquist Park because the rest of it's not going to be expensive. And then, oh wait, right, this is going to be really expensive. Maybe we can't do it at all.
Or maybe they were using that Princeton splash pad as a model, and they already had a kind of a restroom facility there for some other reason. And so when they asked, how much did your splash pad cost, they didn't include that or something.
Yeah, right. I mean, there may be more information to the story. It just feels like it maybe wasn't done. There wasn't quite as much due diligence done as maybe was necessary. So I think at the end of the day, it just leads to probably a fair amount of disappointment for people that really do want the splash pad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just kind of an interesting thing too. I was doing a little bit of reading, and you mentioned the liquor store, and I was kind of curious about how much they contribute. And it varies a little bit, but they contribute $400,000 to the city's general fund every year. Oops.
Okay. Yeah. That would make sense based on what they said, because they said there's no way Northbound Liquor can transfer enough money out to cover that. So that would make sense that it's underneath that, $800,000 price tag.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. That seems like a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
$400K a year. And
then there's some additional. Sometimes they'll do a little. I can't find what I was looking at now, but they'll do it then. The $400, it looked like was a pretty standard kind of base amount, and then they would do $50,000 for this special project or that special project or something. So,
okay,
well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's another one of those examples. Like we talked about the T21, alcohol sales. All the debates over the years of the age on that, and is it available for sale on Sunday? And you're balancing all of these things, like We don't want those things available yet. We love the tax revenue that it generates. And if people aren't going to buy it here, they're going to buy it there. So I think they're fascinating conversations that really don't have, in my opinion, a specific right one answer. It's all about balancing, as you talked about. It's all about balancing.
Yeah. And it's about your personal values, where where you land on that spectrum, and which ties back in a lot of ways to your personality. So different personalities are more or less, kind of looking for certain things. And so, I've said in the past, and I'm pretty much libertarian on a lot of things. I won't bother you and you don't bother me. And so I kind of lean more towards the let's make freedom a priority. And so that, don't tell me what to do, and then I will suffer the consequences of what I do. I'll reap what I sow. So if I don't want to wear a bicycle helmet and I get into an accident, and hurt myself, I will hopefully, I'll deal with that. and versus,
Right.
Someone else might prioritize safety over freedom. And so,
It's hard. It's hard because if you don't have somebody in your life as you were growing up to tell you that, hey, bike helmets are a good idea, then you're not going to wear one, and you could damage yourself. But if I make a law that says you have to wear one, then you'll wear one and you'll be safer. So it is in your best interest. So I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but that's all predicated on everybody having the information that they need. And some people thought, well, I never thought about wearing a bike helmet. So it's well said. I think it's an interesting deal.
Yeah.
So that's all I had on those two stories. Okay. I didn't mean to make it a ranting thing. It was just sort of and I wasn't really ranting, but just sort of those are puzzling ones to me a little bit, based on the information that we had.
Well, and it's good too. I mean, it's sort of like what they talk about at the bakery. I mean, you and I are reading the stories and we have our opinions, and so I think it's good to kind of go back and forth and just kind of express some of our feelings and thoughts on it. So that's good.
And if people are out there that have more information on it that I don't have or whatever, that'd be great. I mean, either letter to the editor or send us something, post something on the Facebook page. Help me bridge the gap. Because it's really, I'm in search of clarity and understanding is ultimately what I'd like to have out of this deal. Mm-hmm. But you've got something interesting to share with us as we close off, right?
I do. You kind of covered the major stories, and so I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I tracked down this book, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. It's called "On the Banks of the Rum: The Centennial Story of Cambridge, Minnesota, from 1866 to 1966." So it was written in 1966, and it's got a lot of the history of Cambridge and how it started and some of the, kind of the influential people and influential businesses. And it's got little interesting blurbs and little interesting facts on here.
Is the Trulene family mentioned in there as a bit of an aside?
No, I have not noticed, or I have not seen that, although there's the Gillespie family is mentioned quite a bit. And I don't know how that, which generation that is or something, but obviously we know some Gillespies.
Right.
But I thought I'd read this. This is an letter to the editor from 1907. And I just thought it was sort of interesting. So I'm just going to read it. It's about, just a little paragraph. So on October 17th, 1907, an editorial comment strikes a chord. So here's the letter. Down Anoka Way, there is talk of changing the name of the Rum River. We in Cambridge might possibly have something to say about that, and we hardly think the people of Iceni County would consent to the obliteration of the historical name Rum from the map of Minnesota. To be sure, the word rum does not lend itself very gracefully to the uses of poetry, though capable at times of evoking much maudlin sentiment, but as applied to the river, it is all right. So it's sort of a little sarcastic, little kind of tongue-in-cheek there. We may be a rum lot up here in Iceni County, but we are practical and want no highfalutin rechristening of the noble stream, and we claim at least equal ownership with the good people of Anoka. So, and then here's a little more history. So that was the letter. The problem of the name of the river had been a concern of the people of Anoka as far back as the 1860s and 1870s. And there was agitation then among the temperance advocates to have the river renamed Anoka. So just thought that was kind of interesting.
The Cambridge area residents didn't want a highfalutin name.
Yeah, highfalutin rechristening of the
so what was River. They said the word rum doesn't bode itself well for poetry. Is that what it was? Or something?
Yeah.
Like interesting. Like that was a concern. Like either one way or the other. Either this is a really good name for poetry, or this isn't really good. It doesn't rhyme. I mean, what sort of interesting thing?
I'm sure the settlers were like, rum. Now it's not going to be a good poetic thing. okay.
They worked with Walt Whitman to develop a poem, and then they had everything in the poem except the name of the river, and so they filled it all in and said, okay, what's the right word for this? And it was rum. It was the
right.
That's funny, but I never even thought about the Rum River as in reference to rum, an alcoholic drink. I've never even thought about what the Rum River even means. It's just so much part of my vocabulary.
Right. Well, and I know a little bit of the story there from another book I have, or maybe it was this one. But so obviously the Rum River starts in Mille Lacs Lake and flows all the way through. And the Indian name for Mille Lacs Lake translated into like spirit, something about spirit.
Okay.
And so they called the Rum River, I believe, Spirit River.
Okay.
And so this, rum is another word for spirits. Is that
really? Oh, just because it's one of the spirits, but it's sort of a different twist on that. Because Spirit River is a pretty common usage around our area. People, there's the Spirit River Church, or this what's the out on 5 there, the golf course / entertainment center. Is now Spirit River. What was that called before?
Oh, something events, entertainment.
Spectacular events became Spirit River. So the Spirit River tie is still there, but okay. So rum in terms of being one of the spirits, or a spirit that you drink.
Yeah, I mean, they used to call spirits. Yeah.
So one of the consumable spirits. There's all kinds of spirits. Rum is a consumable spirit.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, we should probably wrap up. Unfortunately, I got to get rocking and rolling here.
Yeah, for sure. No, this has gone longer. I think Stacey's just so long-winded, and oh my!
But gosh. It is worth it. I could sit and listen to Stacey for hours. So
I could too. No, seriously, I felt like I was cutting him off, but it's so good. He did nothing wrong. It's just super fascinating stuff. But yeah, it did cause us to go a little bit long. But this was fun, man. Good stuff. Good to be back. Thanks for covering the show last week.
Sure. Well, and once again, make sure that you check out our sponsor, the Isanti County Star. They've got a bunch of good articles this week, again, if you want a little more insight or detail on what we talked about. And then also visit the Facebook page. I will try to find that one-sided phone conversation by Bob Newhart and about the smoking. And it might be kind of funny. So that's all we've got. We will talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Pete.